Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very much for coming right after lunch. I hope you've left a little bit of room for seconds, because today we're going to be talking about food and travel and why dining out has become such a quintessential part of the travel experience. So we have a fantastic panel of guests. They're all culinary connoisseurs. So before we get started, I'd like to ask all of you to briefly introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about your roles. Let's start at the end with Lynn.
Great, thanks. Hi everybody, my name is Lynn Bellinger and I'm the Director of Food and Beverage Business Development for Marriott Hotels across Europe, Middle East and Africa. And what I do is I look after all the great branded restaurants, so I bring in all the branded restaurants, branded chefs into the region.
Thank you. Attila?
Hi everyone, my name is Tarak Kinsara. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer in the Riyadh Gate Development Authority out of Saudi Arabia. I've been in the authority for around 3 years. So we look over different strategies, including the experiences of dining within our destination.
Thank you very much. Amanda?
Good afternoon, everybody. Amanda Elder, and I'm Chief Commercial Officer for Kempinski Hotels. I'm based here in Dubai, but my role is global, and we have over 80 properties now open and loving our food and beverage throughout that portfolio. So it's going to be a fabulous topic today.
Thank you very much. Michael?
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Michael Ellis. I am currently the founder of a digital content production company called Passionomy, which is concentrating on those people who are passionate about the food and beverage world. Prior to that, I was the Chief Culinary Officer for Jumeirah here in Dubai, the Jumeirah Hotel Group. And prior to that, I spent 7 years as worldwide head of the Michelin Guides. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Suhaila?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suhaila Gabash. I'm the Executive Director of Festivals and Events in Dubai Festival and Retail Establishment, an agency under Dubai Economy and Tourism. We manage mainly the different festivals in the city, and we work a lot with different sectors, like retail and hospitality and also F&B. And we have some specific festivals that is related to food, like Food Festival, which is running now, and then we have Fitness Challenge, which is focused on health and fitness.
Thank you very much. And my name is Joe Mortimer. I'm the editor-at-large of Destinations of the World News magazine. So now that we are all acquainted, Michael, how about you set the scene for us, please? Why exactly is food and dining such an important part of the travel experience? And how does it help us as travelers to connect with a destination, its culture, and its people?
I think that if we look back what's happened over the last decade or 2 decades, at least in my experience, both at Jumeirah and with the Michelin Guides, there has been really the evolution of what is known as the gastro-tourist, or the people, travelers who put their food and dining experiences really at the heart of what they want to do. So these tend to be fairly sophisticated travelers. They like to eat well, and they will plan their vacations or their holidays around, first and foremost, where they want to eat. So they will decide on going to a specific restaurant, whether it's in Paris, London, New York, Dubai, Tokyo, Singapore, wherever it may be, and then plan on other restaurants to visit. And then once they have their reservations, they will then plan other visits, cultural visits, shopping visits, other touristic type visits around their primary goal, which is to eat, to dine. And I think that's really something that is a relatively new phenomenon. Certainly the hospitality world has not missed that, and I know when I was at Jumeirah, one of the things that we really tried to do was to put the food and beverage offering at the heart of the hospitality experience. And I think that today you will find more and more hospitality providers making the food and beverage offering really something that is a game changer, or certainly a differentiator in terms of the competition, and I see that only getting stronger in the future.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to chip in and tell us a little bit about how food and dining in general can play such an important role in the travel experience?
That's me.
Lynn?
So, I think, as my colleague said, I think one of the primary reasons for the people to visit is to have a dining experience, and this is why in Diriyah, fine dining is one of the primary visits. We want people to come and dine, and not only for the people who are coming outside of Saudi Arabia, also for the people in Saudi Arabia. The thing that in our project, the main aim behind our project is it's a cultural project, it's a heritage project. So we have that challenge of introducing the cultural food, the food that speaks about us, our identity. It's a challenge because now I think the food business in Saudi is booming. The last year we had 14,000 new restaurants in Saudi. Up to this year now we have 7,000 new restaurants in Saudi, but most of them are in the pop culture. So now how we can keep a dialogue, especially with the entrepreneurs. If you can see the licenses last year, 80% were for entrepreneurs. How we can have a dialogue with entrepreneurs where we can actually introduce the local food to Saudi. So we can actually experience as Saudis the local food, and for the people who are coming from outside. And I think this is really part of our value proposition in our destination.
Fantastic. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think also from our experience when it comes to tourism, and one of the things that we've learned through all the research that we do is people, when they come and they travel, the first thing they think of is experiencing the food of the place they're going to, and then at the same time, after a while, after 2 or 3 days, they start looking for their own food, their own national food in the destination. And I think we're lucky here in Dubai because we have more than 200 nationalities. So that variety of offering is very interesting when people come and travel, because they have that option of either eating their local food or experimenting other dishes also in the destination.
And there's probably few places in the world that have seen such a growth in the number of restaurants than Dubai in the last sort of 10 to 15 years. So how important is food now as part of Dubai's overall tourism strategy?
Well, definitely it's very important because it's one of the key pillars in the strategy of the Dubai tourism. And at the same time, I mean, we're looking at different angles, looking at the different categories. We have a strategy of having a conversation around food always on across all our platforms, and also through the economy part of the organization, emphasizing on supporting the SMEs and supporting, the local businesses into growing also within that sector.
I'm going to throw this down the other end. Lynn, you've been in the region for a long time now, so you've seen a lot of that transformation firsthand throughout the whole region. How have you kept up with, or even kind of helped to shape those trends across your Marriott brands?
Yeah, I mean, trends have really played a major aspect. You really need to keep up to date with what's happening in the market. You need to make sure that us as a hotel company, we need to make sure that we're not designing our restaurants too early. So you know exactly, because for instance, it could take 7 years to build a hotel. Could take 5 years, and things are going to change in that time, and the landscape is going to change. So it's just getting it right in terms of designing it at the right time, not too early and then not coming in too late, so you know exactly the landscape. And certainly as a trend, I think brands are absolutely one of the top of those trends at the moment, because everybody wants to have brands in the restaurants. They all like the Cartiers and the Chanels and the Diors when it comes to brands to buy retail, and it's going the same direction when it goes to restaurants as well. So that's definitely a big trend that's happening. We need to keep up with. That's why I'm here.
And Amanda, restaurants and dining are actually part of Kempinski's DNA. The company started off as a restaurant business 125 years ago, I think. So what's your approach when it comes to planning restaurants for the new properties, and what factors do you take into account?
No, you're right. We're actually 125 years old this year, so a lot of authenticity around the hotels, but certainly our offerings and how we retain that very special heritage. And I think through food and beverage, we have such an opportunity to do that. Now, the reality is we often have our owners who have very strong opinions and strong views on what they think will work for their hotel. And with great respect, we very much agree with them sometimes and perhaps have other views and alternate views. So it's a collaboration. It's always about listening. It's about showing them what we have seen work well before. It's about some of our own homegrown brands, Berthold, Frida, where we have in China, we have in Singapore, and that brings, I think, that flavour of Kempinski. But as well, I have to say, Lynn's, of course, very well right there about these name brands. Our owners quite often come to us, and they're a ways down the track with negotiating with these name brands, whether we like it or not. So that becomes very interesting. Mostly those collaborations are very successful. But I think the point is we have to be collaborative, we have to be flexible, and we have to be open. And that's what Kempinski's all about. Even though we've had this incredible history for so long, we're willing to be flexible.
Fantastic. Talal, you have a very sort of different scenario in Diriyah because you've pretty much got a blank canvas to design the dining and the destination experiences for your visitors. But tell us a little bit about the destination's connection with food and heritage dating back for centuries.
Yes, so we want to remind people in our project, it's a project that will celebrate humanity. And on the other hand, the food experience has to be somehow, it has to engage everyone. So we have the fine dining platform. Now we're introducing our first fine dining experience, which has 5 Michelin stars restaurants. But at the same time, how we can actually celebrate our authentic food. And one of the ways that, when it comes to contemporary food, how we can actually infuse some of the ingredients that we have in our culture with the contemporary way of cooking, actually. And this is one of the initiatives that we took. So we have like a culinary lab where we invite chefs from all around the world, and they can actually experiment with different ingredients in international dishes. So this is one of the initiatives. We have also the farm to table. We're lucky that Diriyah is an agriculture site. And we had plants, not recently, and we're trying to get them back so we can actually have that experience, which is the farm to table experience. So this is one of the things that we're working on. The third element that the culture, Saudi Arabia has been a melting pot for different cultures because it has been in the middle between East and West. We've received pilgrims in this land for hundreds of years. So we have a huge element when it comes to cultural food. Now, the trick is how to take that from the out of homes and becomes a dining experience. And I think, as you said, it has to be a collaborative process. It's an experiment. We are all excited about that experiment. Waiting to see how we can actually take this to the next step. And I think entrepreneurs and SMEs will play a huge role in doing that. And one of the things, which is a question that we always pop up in our mind, which is, is there really a difference between the pop culture and the authentic cultural food? So the thing that we've reached out as a conclusion that if it's fun, if it's engaging, I think, yes, we can collaborate with the pop culture. Pop culture, 80%, as I told you, they are entrepreneurs, but they're all in the pop culture, in the Western food. So now how we can turn a percentage of that in providing actually authentic food.
Fantastic. And Suhaila, food and hospitality are, of course, fundamental parts of UAE culture and heritage as well. Tell us a little bit about how some of the restaurants tap into that and enable their diners to kind of experience the culture through food.
Well, I mean, definitely, I mean, looking at even groups like Jumeirah, for example, were the ones from the first people who introduced Emirati food into their cuisines, into their menus. You know, and also there's a lot of restaurant that has been in UAE and in Dubai specifically that also represents the culture, and it's represented in different ways. Some of it represented in the original form, the original dishes as they are, and some present it as a fusion, you know, a combination of the Emirati food with another culture or with their own creativity, because we have really a very good mix of you know, creative and young entrepreneurs who are creating their own restaurant or creating their own, you know, coffee shop. And as you mentioned, there was also a collaboration always between these young entrepreneurs with also brands, you know, and we've seen that during our festivals, like for example, Tiffany's has worked with Saddle and others as well. So it creates that interest also on a global level to also work with these young entrepreneurs and support them.
I think that's a really exciting opportunity, isn't it, to see how youngsters take what is essentially quite traditional food and sort of change it a little bit for the next generation. And that's really exciting to see. Michael, during your time at the Michelin Guide, you have eaten at many of the best restaurants of the world, probably all of them. So you understand very well how food can tap into the character of a destination and convey it. Which destinations worldwide would you pick out as places that do that exceptionally well?
Well, that's a tough question. I will say that my time in Dubai has really opened my eyes here with Jumeirah. I mean, really, Dubai is one of the most exciting dining destinations in the world today. I think it's it's still a lot to be told. The story needs to be told outside, which when I think Dubai is, the Dubai tourist authorities have done a great job at getting that word out there. So I think that Dubai is certainly up in there. If you look at places like Paris, obviously, Singapore, Tokyo, some of the southern European countries like Portugal, Spain, Italy, I think they've done a particularly good job. Also Kuala Lumpur to a certain degree, now Korea. They've done, I think, a good job at trying to communicate the importance of their local ingredients, the seasonality, their local cooking techniques, the heritage of the food, and to the world audience. I mean, now you have people who are going to particular countries to try particular dishes, and I think that's something that's been very, very interesting. It's interesting to see, certainly in the activity that I'm doing now with Passiononomy, we're really trying to capture the particularities of the people behind what is going on in the culinary world, because there's a whole universe of very passionate people who are going after creating experiences, whether it's fishermen, whether it's chefs, of course, but people who are growing tomatoes or green beans, or making knives in Japan, or there's a whole ecosystem in the world of gastronomy where you have passionate people doing it not for money or glory, but because they're passionate about it. And this is going to continue to develop, and I think that people will continue to go on trips for specific culinary adventures, and these tend to be also very, I think, sophisticated and well-heeled travelers, and they're very good at, I think, elevating the overall touristic experience, or the general layout of a tourism's attractiveness, because they're people who understand and are open to new experiences and enjoy them.
Fantastic. And to our hoteliers, Lynn and Amanda, as well as authentic local flavors, there's a huge appetite for restaurants with big name brands, as we said, and also big name chefs at the helm. What drives the demand for that, and what do they add to your proposition from a competitive point of view?
I mean, the clue there is really in the name, big brands. I mean, it's you're going for a recognized brand. So half of your marketing is already done. You just bring that name in. They know what it is. They know what to expect. So I think that's part of it. So you bring in something that people recognize. It just creates an awareness. You can make far more money as an owner or as a hotelier. We can make far more money from a branded concept than we can from an unknown concept a lot of the time. It doesn't always pan out that way, because we've got some really successful independent concepts that we create as well. But but that's generally the rule of thumb. We always say anywhere between 15 to 30% more revenue if you've got something that's known, but it can go up to 100 to 200% more on certain brands. So you bring those people in to, it's obviously going to bring you more money. Sometimes it's purely the recognition, the stigma to have that big name in the hotel. Sometimes owners say, I just want a big name. It doesn't necessarily have to make that much money. I don't care how much the upfront fees are. The world's your oyster. It's a great playground for me when that happens. But yes, it's the recognition at the end of the day that will drive in the customers.
Well, for us, I think it's been so interesting. Some of our experience means regionally, somebody can be very famous and can be absolutely so suitable for this particular area in the world, and then it doesn't necessarily map across to somewhere else. And, you know, of course, when you're talking the Gordon Ramsays and the truly global names, that's a different proposition. But we've investigated some fabulous Chinese chefs, and we've been able to bring them to parts of the world where they weren't known before and created a brand for them, if you like. We also have done that a little bit with our Adlon Kempinski, with the Michelin star chefs there, and taken them out in a little bit of a pop-up type situation, but it creates almost a new brand when you take those opportunities globally. So not all of the hotels, unfortunately, have the budgets, and we all wish we had, but I think we can create some of that ourselves, and it's very interesting when you see that success moving up and becoming more famous.
Yeah.
And you had a hand in that. It's a fantastic feeling.
If I can add to the big brands, I think the mix between the big brands and the other brands, because the big brands create the perception for the sophisticated travelers to come. So it creates the perception about, yes, I'm offering a dining experience. The second, it will help in sustaining that sector, especially for us as a new destination. The big brands help in sustaining that. They know the business. They can manage it easily. So it's a mix because with the other experiments, it would be great, but it's risky at the same time. So with the big brands, it helps the stability and the sustainability of the business. So yes, it requires, and this is why we started our first dining experience in Diriyah with the big names, and we only infused 2 or 3 cultural or Saudi fine dining. But I think at the beginning, it's really crucial to have the big names.
And a few of you have said to me in the build-up to this that as well as the reputation and the cachet of having a big name and people actually wanting to eat the food there, it's also a sense of having been seen to be at those places, isn't it? It's, Instagram and other social profiles.
Definitely. I mean, when you've got the chef themselves there, and if you get a really good chef, they get involved in the restaurant itself, and they come over several times a year and they do events, and that's when you really pull in the people to come. Not saying that they won't come when the chef's not there, but it just brings that extra attraction when they do eventually come there. And like I say, they are that type of chef that will mingle with the customers, because a lot of the chefs don't, and they're the ones that we try to avoid, because again, a lot of people say, you know, you bring in a big chef, they put the name over the door and then they kind of disappear, and that does happen, and those are the ones that we want to really try and avoid at the end of the day. But yeah, it's you're right, it's sometimes the Instagram moment. I've been there at that restaurant, and you've done that, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm sure he has. But Joe, I'm just reflecting on a conversation I had with the owners of one of our hotels just literally on the weekend. And a common topic that we jumped onto was, well, which Nobus have you dined at? And, you know, she was ticking them off, and it was absolutely a journey for her and a bunch of experiences that she was within her world travels that she will always remember. And that's what I love, you know, this theme of people choose where to go based on the restaurant that's there. And for sure, the couple she's missing, she's planning to go to those hotels, those destinations because of that Nobu restaurant.
It's like the new Hard Rock Cafe, where people used to collect the pins from every Hard Rock around the world.
Yes, I remember those days.
Any other thoughts on that anyone wanted to add?
I think also, I mean, going to a restaurant and going to a cafe or something is basically kind of a social activity as well. And it's becoming, people see this restaurant is mentioned a lot, or, you know, covered a lot on Instagram, they would be interested to go and see it. And I think social media has helped a lot in these businesses, whether it was, you know, retail or even gastronomy, to create that popularity. And as the ladies has mentioned very, very well, that if the owner of the restaurant or the owner of the cafe is also on Instagram and very active and, you know, posting all the time and on social media, then that helps also bringing more footfall and business to his place.
And we talked a lot about big brands and big names, but we've also discussed how there's so many opportunities now for sort of homegrown talent and for pop-ups and new creativity, especially in Dubai.
Definitely. I mean, SME is a category that we are also looking into, and how to grow that sector and how to grow it in all different pillars of tourism and economy. And supporting that sector also support us as tourism, because we've looked at it also from a tourism perspective. And people, when they travel, they also always look at not only the big brands and the names, because they might find them anywhere else in the world. They look into also the local food, and, you know, they might be enjoying you know, a sambusa in Karama, at the same time they can go to Burj Al Arab and dine at the same time. So it's that experience that is in the city of Dubai that is helping us in terms of promoting, you know, the whole gastronomy scene.
Variety is the spice of life.
Yes.
So, Michael, earlier you alluded to the fact that people were interested in many more aspects of the dining journey than they used to be. It's not just the meal, but people are interested in the provenance of ingredients. Yep. They're interested in chefs, specific products that are unique to destinations. I'll open this question to all of you, but how do you kind of enable guests, visitors, travelers to tap into those aspects of a destination and to experience things like that, like, you know, date culture or a specific product? Anybody?
I mean, I could jump in and talk a little bit about what I've so enjoyed seeing in some of the properties, and most certainly here in Dubai, but in Europe, reinvention of dishes that were really a heritage of the place. And I was listening to what Talal said. How do you reinvent dishes that are Instagrammable or very interesting to the younger set? And I think there are some fantastic examples of that. I mean, I have to reflect on the currywurst, of all things, which is a very famous German dish in Berlin. And it's as if you have not really seen Berlin if you haven't eaten the currywurst at a certain place. You know, and that's because they reinvented it. It's not exactly as it was, you know, 40 years ago, but it resonates with people. So that would be my take on it, yeah.
Okay.
I think from our perspective also, I mean, being in Dubai and being in UAE and living next to the beach and to the sea, and also having, you know, oasis in the desert that has palm trees and all of that, and then having mountains like Hatta, you know, with a different culture. I mean, having all of that created also our dishes, you know. There is the seafood culture, there is, you know, the dates where you use the serums and everything else when it comes to sweets. There is, you know, so using the elements of the environment that we used to live in is something that, you know, helped in terms of creating our menu, let's say, our local menu. And then it's interesting to see how also that menu has evolved, and has been, elements of that menu has been used, like the saffron or the dates or whatever. It's been used also in other dishes, and maybe also in other, you know, cuisines as well.
Talal, I think you wanted to answer, but I'm just going to quickly recall a conversation where you told me about how you were exploring the date history and heritage and flavors of dates and the biology behind them in great detail, and how you're going to try and incorporate that into the visitor experience.
Yes, I think we need to offer a variety of experiences to the people. So, for example, dates. Now we're exploring how to infuse dates in international dishes. So this is using local ingredients, but at the same time, the traditional food, how we can actually offer that as an experience by itself. I'll just mention an example. We have a meal called mandi, which is a big rice, and everyone gathers around it and eat from it. Now, I've seen an experiment where they put it in a small portion and it doesn't give the same spirit. So now we're trying to have a dialogue that, okay, how much you can actually modify on the food where it doesn't actually strip away the spirit of that food. So it has to come with the same presentation, it has to come with the same atmosphere, it has to come with the same spirit. And this is the kind of experiment. So on a fine dining and contemporary food, I think, yes, we need to continue. We need to fill the gap in Saudi. Now it's rapidly increasing in Saudi. And it would take some time to experiment with the international dishes and see how we can infuse some of our local ingredients. At the same time, we can see how we can move our traditional food, be it actually offered to the people, and the way that we experiment in our homes. Luckily, in Saudi, we're still eating our traditional food at homes. But now how we can move that and to become an experience that people can actually enjoy.
Excellent. And of course, the very exciting food news for Dubai this year is that the Michelin Guide is going to be launching in June, which is a huge deal, not only for Dubai, but for the wider region. Suhaila, what does it mean for the destination?
It's very exciting. I mean, and also being TripAdvisor destination #1 as well, and in the same category is really interesting for us as well, because I mean, you know, we've had gastronomy, we have a foodie industry in the city more than 20 years in the city, and this is the first time that this guide is coming to the city. So it is very exciting to have that acknowledgement for the, you know, the people that has been behind this industry all this time.
And Michael, probably of all of us, you know better than anyone how important it is. What kind of opportunities does this open up for the city, but also for the young chefs who are getting into this career?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge opportunity for Dubai to put Dubai rightly in the gastronomic place it deserves in the gastronomy of the world. I think there will, in my experience, having launched about 10 new guides and new destinations, there will be a learning curve for the local restaurateurs, because there's a lot of mythology and misunderstanding around what the Michelin Guide judges, even though it's clearly written in the guides themselves. It's nothing, the Michelin Guide, first of all, only about 15% of the guide's content is stars, 1, 2, or 3 stars. 85% around the world is just being in the Michelin Guide, which in and of itself is a sign of a good restaurant. But the guide only takes into consideration what's in the plate. It's quality and freshness of ingredients. It's mastery of cooking technique. It's harmony, balance, equilibrium in the flavors. It's the chef's personality is expressed in the dishes. And it's regularity throughout the menu and throughout time. So whether it's January, June, or December, the quality of the meal should be good. The Michelin inspectors come several times. So nothing, the decor, the music, the service, the comfort level, the lighting, none of those things which make restaurants popular in terms of an experience are taken into consideration. And I can tell you, I have before working at the Michelin Guide, I used the Michelin Guide for 30 years, and the Michelin Guide has steered me to some actually pretty unpleasant restaurants where the food was really good, but the overall experience was not good. And that will not work in Dubai. Dubai is arguably the most competitive restaurant market in the world. You've got some of the highest grossing restaurants in the world here in terms of covers, number of covers, and average ticket on the, so it's really, you don't find that anywhere outside of maybe Las Vegas, Orlando, and a few other big cities. So I think I've always said to chefs, you know, it's a business, so chefs need to understand 3 things. What do their customers want to eat? How much the customers want to pay, and what kind of an environment they want to be in. And if they do that, the restaurant will be successful. And I can tell you, I've seen many restaurants that were wildly successful, wildly profitable, and will never be in the Michelin Guide. I've also seen restaurants around the world that have had Michelin 1, 2, or 3 stars and were economic financial failures, because what the chef and the team was producing was not what the local audience wanted. So I think the Michelin Guide will be very good in terms of structuring, having the chef community understand what the Michelin Guide, it's what's important for the Michelin Guide, but I wouldn't confuse that with commercial success, because there's a lot of, I mean, you have to have both. I mean, there certainly, you know, there's fun dining and there's fine dining, okay? I mean, in a truly, the fine dining Michelin 3-star experience, I think there's room for that in Dubai, there's certainly that will come, and I think that in the Michelin Guide will give the opportunity for chefs to kind of compare what they're doing in terms of what the Michelin Guide criteria wants. But it's very important to not confuse. Most Michelin 3-star restaurants don't make money, to be honest. Most of the chefs who run them are able to run bistros or run other restaurants to actually make money. So those things are separate.
Very interesting. And just briefly from our hoteliers, it also presents opportunities for you to create new outlets that aspire to Michelin star status, and also challenges. What opportunities does this present for you?
I mean, certainly a lot of opportunities. We've got 14 Michelin star restaurants across Europe, so we're looking forward now to hopefully adding to that tally. But in this part of the world, it's really going to cement the food tourism, bringing people across. But also, it's going to help attract and retain talent. I mean, you touched on it before in terms of the chefs and everything, and what opportunities it would bring for them. So, and I think for the hotels, I think it's going to be great opportunities to get chefs to really attract them over here into this industry, with that sort of as the end goal, to work towards the Michelin Guide. But Michael just mentioned on the commercial side of things, and I was just having that conversation with Andreas, one of our general managers from Barcelona, is the commercial viability of Michelin restaurants as well. We've really got to bring that to the forth when we're talking about it, and if we're going for that, there's got to be some give there when it comes to the commercial viability of it as well. It's an interesting balance when we talk about that. So that's some of the challenges I think that we'll face at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. And Amanda?
For me, I would say that the hotel industry in Dubai is just so competitive. I mean, for those of us who live here, we are blessed with so much quality and so many choices that this must become somewhat of another differentiator, because we're always talking about our prowess with quality, our prowess with our average rate, our occupancy, and I think that with the guide, it will give us yet another opportunity to say, well, hang on, we say we're the best, and now we can have another marker to prove so. So, I just think that it's time. I think our chefs, I know, are very excited about it, and we will see how this, in fact, elevates the whole destination and the experience overall, I think.
Fantastic. And Talal, is this food for thought for you? I know it may be a long way off, but...
Yes, of course. Now the thing, as Michael said, I used to be a food blogger. It's all about the experience. So we didn't have something that, this is a criteria that you have to tick. It's all about the experience. But today, with some of the challenges that we're facing now, 60% of Saudi are young, and we're expecting a lot of young travelers. So we need to think what resembles a good experience for the young people. One of the things that Michael mentioned, fun. Yes, this might resembles a good experience. It doesn't have to be, for example, a Western food. We can actually provide maybe traditional food, but it has to be fun and engaging. But still, we're having a lot of dialogue with the young people. They don't know what they want yet. So we need always to analyze what resembles a good experience for fun dining. And this is one of the challenges that we're trying to figure out, especially with the introduction of local food, having it as a dining experience.
Well, we've got a minute, so I'll fire another one out. Okay, how about, just for a bit of fun, can you give us an example of one restaurant or dining experience that is in your destination or in one of your hotels, or that you've had yourself, that has really stayed with you, that really tells the story of a place or a cuisine or a chef? Anybody like to take that?
We've just opened a restaurant here in Dubai at the Ritz-Carlton on JBR. It's called Tamoka, and the word Tamoka comes from it's rum bandits, basically. It's a ship that used to bring contraband rum from Cuba to the States. So that's where it comes from. And the food is Antillean, Caribbean, and the music's a little bit Latino. And yeah, it's done extremely well since opening in the last 8 months, and I think it's sitting at number 7 in Europe, Middle East and Africa restaurants at the moment, and that's one of our own concepts there. But a great experience there, the staff, the service, the food, the ambience, the views and everything like that. But again, it's a little bit of the story behind it, of where the name comes from and the you know, the journey of the cuisine, etc.
Very nice, thank you.
I'd like to, there's a restaurant that's been open for I think about a year now on Al Wasl Road called Orfali Brothers, and they are Syrian brothers who have done, I think it's fascinating, they're from Aleppo originally, and they are doing a very modern Aleppo cuisine, and I was just amazed to see. For me, it was the real, and I think there's a huge opportunity also in Dubai for that as well, to take traditional Arabic dishes and completely, change them, or keeping the DNA the same, but to really to elevate it, to evolve it in a way that is totally unexpected. And I'm hoping that the Michelin inspectors who are out there now have taken note of Orfali, among the many other wonderful restaurants in Dubai. But I think I'll be very interested to see how that pans out when the guide comes out.
I heard about that one the other day, actually, so yeah.
Worth going to.
Yeah, I will. I'll try that.
I think one of the restaurants that we have is Takia, is a fine dining Saudi restaurant. We're having it, and also in our first experience. They're using fresh and local ingredients, but presented in a contemporary way. And the fun thing that it's fun for us as Saudis, this dish? And the minute you start actually tasting it, yes, you would know, but it has been presented in a contemporary way. And exciting that we have food in Saudi that looks like other food. So we have like the gyozas, a food looks like gyoza, but it tastes differently because of the local ingredients. And it has been presented like gyoza, so it's exciting. And we are having this restaurant, so I'm encouraging everyone to come and try that restaurant one day.
Amazing, sounds good.
I guess it would be remiss of me not to mention that we happen to be launching Villa More tonight officially at the Kempinski residences, hotel and residences on the Palm. Now, this is a beachfront restaurant. It's absolutely beautiful location, and I think you could almost forget about the food because of the view, except that it's not possible to forget about the food. It's so colourful, it's so beautiful. I've been fortunate to have a couple of experiences there, and it's great. I mean, really, really nice. So I would throw that out as a new experience in Dubai at the moment.
Excellent. This is all making me very hungry. Suhaila, any final thought from you?
As we were talking about Emirati food, I think Al Fanar in Festival City, and I think other destinations, represents the Emirati food with the ambience, with everything. So it is worth experiencing that traditional Emirati food in that restaurant.
Fantastic. Well, that is all we've got time for, unfortunately. I hope that has whet your appetite for food and travel experiences, and you're all going to go and have something delicious for dinner this evening. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining us, and please join me in a round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you.